When you think of Nintendo, you might see Mario jumping from pipe to pipe or Link brandishing his sword. But did you know that this giant that has marked several generations, including mine, perhaps more than others, almost disappeared? Twice. In a field where big companies fall quickly, remember Sega or Atari? Nintendo has survived despite countless obstacles. On its way. Better, it triumphed by becoming an essential pillar of entertainment. But how did a playing card company that was born in Kyoto, Japan, in 1889, manage to reinvent itself to reign over the video game industry? How did it overcome all its failures, thwarted competitions, and its own mistakes to sign two of the biggest comebacks in business history? Hello, Team Mindset. I hope you're doing well. Today, we're going to explore the history of Nintendo. Whether you're a gamer or just passionate about business, the story of this company has everything to make a good movie. Let's get started. For your information, Nintendo wasn't always called the giant of video gaming. But to understand a bit of historical context, at its beginnings in 1889, the company had nothing to do with pixels or controllers. It was a small playing card factory that was founded by Fusai Jiro Yamoshi, a Japanese craftsman. Gambling was illegal in Japan at the time, but Nintendo took advantage of the situation. The cards that the company made, called Hanafuda or flower cards, were very innovative for the time. They didn't have numbers, which allowed them to avoid gambling laws, while still remaining popular among the Japanese. They were handmade and were true works of art that quickly became a success. In a few years, Nintendo went from a simple craft shop to a major player in the game in Japan. The Yamochi family carried Nintendo for several generations. After Fusai Jiro, the company passed into the hands of his descendants, each of whom added their stone to the building. But it's Hiroshi Yamochi, the founder's grandson, who will transform Nintendo forever. In 1950, Hiroshi, who is young and ambitious, becomes president of Nintendo at only 22 years old. His vision is clear. He wants Nintendo to surpass the card market and become an entertainment empire. But to get there, he had to take risks, a lot of risks. In the 50s and 60s, Nintendo diversifies. It tries to launch several new products, some of which are quite outlandish. Instant rice, inspired by the success of the noodles of the time. A failure, a love hotel chain, which is a risky bet in a conservative Japan. Another failure, electronic and mechanical toys closer to children's games. It's a first step towards success. These failed attempts, which cost a lot of money, almost marked the end of Nintendo. But one of these attempts allowed Hiroshi to understand one thing. To succeed, Nintendo had to focus on the gaming field, where they excelled and needed to redouble their efforts. In 1963, Nintendo officially left the playing card market to focus on a revolutionary idea, electronic games. The company started making innovative toys, such as the Ultra Hand, an extendable mechanical claw that was an instant hit. This first success allowed Nintendo to secure its place in the toy and innovation industry. But the real turning point came in the 70s. With the advent of video games, Nintendo felt that something big was being born. The company was creating its first arcade games and recognized the potential of electronic consoles. This focus on gaming, combined with a unique ability to take risks, allowed Nintendo to prepare for its biggest leap, the one towards video gaming. And as you will see, the arrival of characters you know well was soon going to change the history of Nintendo and the entire world forever. In the 1970s, after having reasonable success in electronic games, Nintendo bet on a still-emerging field, arcade games. The company recognizes its opportunity, but still needs a game that can make a lasting impact. It's at this point that a young developer will enter history, Shigeru Miyamoto. In 1981, he creates Donkey Kong, an arcade game that revolutionizes the genre. The scenario is simple. A jumping character must save a princess from a giant gorilla. Yet, this game marks a turning point for several reasons. It introduces iconic characters like Jumpman, who would later become Mario. And it may seem commonplace today, but it's one of the first games to offer a narrative, which was a revolution for the time and completely hooked the players. Moreover, the controls are intuitive and the levels completely addictive, and it's a winning recipe to attract a wide audience. Donkey Kong is a huge success. And for Nintendo, it's a sign that video games are not a passing fad, but the future of entertainment. With the success in arcades, Nintendo's leaders understand that video games need to be brought into homes. In 1983, Nintendo launches the Famicom, or Family Computer, in Japan. 2 years later, this same console arrives in North America, under the name of Nintendo Entertainment System or Nintendo Entertainment System. The context is quite complex. The video game industry had just suffered a major crash in 1983, where giants like Atari had collapsed. Stores no longer wanted to hear about consoles, and Nintendo then adopted an original strategy: present the Nintendo Entertainment System not as a console, but as a technological toy. The difference may be hard to understand, but this decision will prove to be brilliant. The Nintendo Entertainment System arrives with a revolutionary accessory, the Zapper Gun, and most importantly, ROB, an interactive robot designed to appeal to American retailers. This reassures distributors and allows Nintendo to impose its console on the Western market. But the real strength of the Nintendo Entertainment System doesn't just come from the console itself, it comes from the games. Nintendo makes a big hit with Super Mario Bros., as the Americans say, which is a title that defines what a video game can be. By combining colorful graphics, smooth gameplay, and a charismatic character, Nintendo delivers an addictive game that will appeal to both children and adults alike. The success is instant. Super Mario becomes a global phenomenon by selling millions of copies. But that's not all. Titles like The Legend of Zelda, released in 1986, push innovation even further, with open worlds and progress saves. And these games are not just entertainment, they become immersive experiences that retain entire generations of players. Thanks to them, Nintendo will dominate the home console market by the end of the 80s. The company understands that a video game is not just a technical feat, it's a story, an emotion, and an invitation to have fun. Shigeru Miyamoto, often dubbed the Walt Disney of video games, becomes the figurehead of this philosophy. For him, a good game must prioritize fun and accessibility. This approach set him apart from other companies that focused mainly on the raw power of gaming machines at the time. Even though, as we will discuss later in the video, it will also lead Nintendo into a wall. In the late 80s and early 90s, Nintendo started viewing itself as unbeatable. The Nintendo Entertainment System has installed the home console in households around the world, and the Game Boy, launched in 1989, revolutionizes the portable game market. And you know, if you've watched the videos on Nokia, Kodak, or even GoPro, that it's often at that moment that things go wrong, when the giant thinks it's indestructible. In the shadows, a new player is preparing to shake up the empire. Nintendo Sega, with its Mega Drive, and, later, Sony with its PlayStation, are going to challenge this supremacy. Nintendo, despite its colossal success, will soon have to face the biggest competition in its history. First blow comes from Sega with the release of the Mega Drive or Genesis. In 1988, Sega adopts a bold strategy to stand out: target teenagers and young adults. Nintendo, with its family-friendly and colorful image, neglected a demographic. Sega bets on more mature and dynamic games. Like Sonic the Hedgehog, the new face of the brand. Where Mario is cheerful and childlike, Sonic is cool, fast, and rebellious. Sega does not hesitate to attack Nintendo head-on, with provocative slogans like "Genesis does what Nintendo don't," which means Genesis does what Nintendo does not do, with a rather provocative play on words. The results are spectacular. In North America, Sega rapidly gains market share and starts to outshine Nintendo, who still thinks it's not that bad. But the arrival of another challenger, which you have all already used, is going to enter the arena and trigger the real earthquake. Sony aims to dominate everything, starting with a disagreement. Sony was to partner with Nintendo to make a CD read-only memory player for the Super Nintendo. But after the deal fell through, Sony chose to release its own console, the PlayStation. Released in 1994 in Japan and then in 1995 in the rest of the world, the PlayStation is a revolution. It uses CD-ROMs instead of cartridges, which reduces production costs and offers greater storage capacity. For games, it clearly targets an adult audience, with darker and narrative games like Resident Evil or Final Fantasy VII. I spent countless sleepless nights with friends playing this game. Its 3D graphics were impressive for the era, surpassing Nintendo's consoles. The success is immediate. Sony sells over 102 million PlayStations and crushes Nintendo, which is far behind with its N64, which only sold 32 million units. Faced with this growing competition, Nintendo makes decisions that, in retrospect, turn out to be major strategic errors. The main one, its stubbornness to ignore technological advancements and to stick with cartridges rather than adopting CDs, was a determining factor in this difference. The cartridges limited the available memory for games and were more expensive to produce, which pushed many developers to leave the company for the competition. A prime example is the break with Squaresoft. The developer, who was famous for the Final Fantasy series, leaves Nintendo for Sony. Because the first console does not allow for the creation of richer and more narrative games like the PlayStation does. Hiroshi Yamauchi, president of Nintendo, reportedly responded with legendary coldness, "If you leave, never come back." A break that will permanently tarnish Nintendo's reputation among developers. However, the issues are only starting. As Nintendo struggled against Sony's PlayStation, a new competitor emerged in the early 2000s. In 2001, Microsoft, the American tech giant, launches its first gaming console, the Xbox, which disrupts the industry. At the time, Microsoft was already a behemoth in its field, dominating the software market with Windows. But the video game console sector was tough territory. Sony took years to establish PlayStation, while Sega had already stumbled with Dreamcast. The idea that a company, even one as wealthy as Microsoft, could establish itself in this field seemed risky. Many wondered, Microsoft has never made a console. Can they compete with veterans like Sony and Nintendo? Isn't the Xbox just a PC disguised as a console? In fact, many media analysts and Nintendo thought that Microsoft was embarking on an almost lost battle against the already established giants. Microsoft's strategy is clear. Target adult gamers and tech enthusiasts. The Xbox offers impressive graphics, an architecture close to a PC, which makes the developers' work easier. It also has online multiplayer gaming thanks to Xbox Live, a revolutionary service for its time. And it is more powerful than the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube. In addition, it has an integrated hard drive, which is a first for a console. Games like Halo instantly become classics and establish the Xbox as a serious competitor in the upcoming battle. Meanwhile, Nintendo is readying its counterattack. The GameCube, no spoiler, even though I love this console with games like Super Smash Bros. Melee. In terms of numbers, it's a flop, but we'll come back to that later. The GameCube is a powerful, compact console hindered by several drawbacks. A small game library that fails to draw developers due to the aforementioned factors. The image remains too family-friendly, misaligned with the mature audience Sony and Microsoft aim to reach. The choice of mini DVDs, which cannot compete with the storage capacity of the standard discs used by the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. The introduction of the latter, combined with the meteoric success of the PlayStation 2, moves Nintendo from the position of industry leader to dead last. By the end of this console generation, the numbers speak for themselves. PlayStation 2, 155 million units sold, a historical record. Xbox, 24 million units, moved for a successful first attempt. GameCube, only 21 million units, making Nintendo the big loser of this generation. For the first time, Nintendo appears to be in a vulnerable position, as its approach of utilizing outdated tech and targeting a niche market is no longer effective. To survive, Nintendo must change. The video game giant faces a crucial decision: innovate or fade away. In 2006, Nintendo was backed into a corner following the GameCube's failure, playing its last card. Rather than confronting Sony and Microsoft on the field of powerful graphics and sophisticated machines, Nintendo chooses an unexpected path, betting on accessibility and playful innovation. This is how the Nintendo Wii is born, a console that will change the way we play. The Wii does not rely on brute power, but on an innovation: motion controls. Thanks to its Wii Remote, the console allows for intuitive gameplay. The simple controllers allow everyone from kids to grandparents to join the game. The iconic launch game, Wii Sport, perfectly encapsulates this philosophy. A game of bowling or tennis becomes a friendly, family, and accessible moment. The Wii doesn't just target regular gamers, it aims to conquer a new audience, those who have never touched a console before. The bet is paying off. The Wii is a global phenomenon, selling over 101 million units, eclipsing the competition, including the PlayStation 3 and Microsoft's Xbox 360. There are several reasons for this success. It's affordably priced, costing much less than competitors. The Wii is everywhere, in living rooms, schools, and even retirement homes. Nintendo, after difficult years, becomes a giant again. Yet, despite the success, the Wii hides deep problems. The console's limited power makes it obsolete compared to the advanced PS3 and Xbox 360. HD gaming becomes standard, but the Wii's aging resolution remains. The lack of games for gamers becomes an issue. While the general public loves the Wii, passionate gamers are turning to Sony and Microsoft, who offer more mature games and more immersive experiences. Finally, the lack of support from third-party developers continues. Major franchises from other studios avoid the Wii, which limits its catalog to Nintendo games or titles geared towards casual gaming. The Wii has attracted the general public but alienated some of its longtime gaming community. This is a paradox that will weigh heavily in the course of events. In 2012, Nintendo attempted to build on the Wii's success with the Wii U, which seemed promising in theory. It comes with a controller featuring an integrated screen for a hybrid home console and portable gaming experience. Several reasons explain this failure, including confusing communication. Many consumers do not understand if the Wii U is a new console or just an accessory for the Wii. There is no convincing innovation, the game catalog is limited, and the competition is overwhelming. As Nintendo struggles, Sony and Microsoft launched the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, two powerful consoles that will dominate the market's focus. As a result, the Wii U only sells 13 million units, which is a catastrophic figure compared to the 101 million of the Wii. The Wii U was Nintendo's biggest commercial failure since its founding, leaving the company on the brink of collapse at the end of the console's era. Sales are collapsing, players are turning away, and the company seems unable to regain its place. In a market dominated by more powerful consoles and modern gaming, rumors are circulating. Even Nintendo should abandon console manufacturing and focus on its iconic franchises, like Sega did with Sonic, by licensing them on other platforms, a hypothesis that would have meant the end of an era. Just when all seems lost and you start to comprehend, Nintendo knows how to respond when faced with challenges. The company is going to prepare a final masterstroke, a console that will unite casual and dedicated gamers while rectifying previous errors. 2017, Nintendo is playing its last card after the resounding failure of the Wii U. The company must strike hard to win back the hearts of players and prove that it still has its place in the video game industry. The result is the Nintendo Switch, a hybrid console that will disrupt the market. Unlike its competitors who rely on raw power with the PS4 and Xbox One, Nintendo still chooses to innovate in the gaming experience. The Switch is a console capable of adapting. It can be plugged into the television to play like a home console. It can be used in portable mode, like a console to take everywhere. It also allows for instant two-player gaming, thanks to the Joy-Con, detachable controllers that are included in the box. The idea is simple yet revolutionary. Where the Wii U failed to convince with its off-screen, the Switch finally realizes the dream of a hybrid, intuitive, and modern console. If the Switch works, it's also because it offers exceptional games right from its launch. Nintendo has made a big hit with two major titles since their release: The Legend of Zelda, Breath of Wild, and Super Mario Odyssey, which is a return to the roots for Mario with creative levels, accessible gameplay, and polished graphics. Another strong point is that Nintendo finally corrects one of its biggest weaknesses. For years, third-party developers had shunned Nintendo consoles because of their technological limitations and choices poorly suited to modern standards. The Switch's open structure makes console development simpler, changing everything. And Nintendo finally welcomes our major studio. Similar to The Elder Scrolls, Fortnite, and Dark Souls, the console is also a haven for indie games. Titles like Hollow Knight or Celeste find a loyal audience on the Switch. The success of the Switch is dazzling. In a few years, it becomes the best-selling console in Nintendo's history, even surpassing the Wii. With over 111 million units sold in 2023, Nintendo continues to innovate. While they had long ignored the mobile gaming market, they changed their strategy. In 2016, Pokémon Go, developed in partnership with Niantic, becomes a global phenomenon with over 1 billion downloads. Encouraged by this success, Nintendo will launch other mobile games like Mario Kart Tour, Super Mario Run, and Fire Emblem Heroes. These titles will generate billions. The Switch's success lies in Nintendo returning to its DNA. Fun, above all. Nintendo's philosophy, as expressed by the company itself, is to put smiles on faces. While the Switch has allowed Nintendo to return to the top, not everything is perfect. Despite commercial successes, the company faces major challenges that could jeopardize its future if it does not address them. Nintendo has faced criticism for several years over alleged poor working conditions. Employees, especially in quality control, have complained about low pay, unstable contracts, and unrelenting pressure. A former tester, Yelena Zalmonja, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, describes a system where permanent employment is mainly an incentive dangled just out of reach to coerce workers into accepting extremely harsh conditions. These accusations extend beyond Japan. In North America, reports indicate a corporate culture that discourages unions and limits career advancement opportunities for temporary jobs. At a time when well-being at work has become a central issue, and even more so for a company that sells dreams, these issues may damage Nintendo's reputation without swift management intervention. Competition is intensifying. Although the Switch has dominated the market, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X still represent serious competition. These consoles, which are once again much more powerful, attract gamers looking for ultra-high-definition graphics and maximum performance. Nintendo has avoided this battle so far due to its unique positioning, but for how long? Players' expectations are evolving, and mobile gaming is making the market more competitive. Blockchain, as seen in the Metaverse video linked in the description, was also discussed. Nintendo's next console must balance innovation and modern tech to stay relevant, maintaining its innovative edge. One of the biggest risks for Nintendo is to repeat past mistakes. It relies on achievements, forgetting to innovate. While the Switch has been a success, its successor will need to bring a new vision to maintain player engagement. Nintendo also needs to continue expanding its audience by working on titles that will appeal to both casual gamers and passionate players. Partnerships with third-party developers, creative collaborations, and new intellectual properties will be necessary to avoid falling back into a routine. Nintendo's unique identity remains its key asset, setting it apart from competitors despite challenges. Where Sony and Microsoft are fighting to dominate technology, Nintendo focuses on what it has always defined: fun, creativity, and simplicity. The Switch's success shows players seek not just technical performance, but also fun and accessible experiences. As long as Nintendo stays true to its values and innovates to surprise, it can face future challenges. As it did so well in 2023 with Super Mario Bros., the movie that blew up at the global box office. In under a month, it surpassed the symbolic billion-dollar revenue milestone, becoming the first 2023 movie to achieve this feat. What is certain is that Nintendo has proven twice that it knows how to rise from its ashes. But the challenges to come are numerous. If the company manages to adapt without losing its soul, it will continue to put smiles on our faces for years to come. Unlike Disney, which has made choices that go against its own interests, and which could lead the iconic company to its downfall. As seen in the video that is displayed,